All right, let's talk about something that hits us all right where we live, our money. Specifically, why its value is always changing. It all comes down to a really cool economic idea called monetary equilibrium, and we're going to dig in to exactly what that means. You've been there, right? At the grocery store, filling up your car. You look at the receipt and just think, wow, this same 20 bucks just doesn't go as far as it used to. Well, guess what? It's not just you, it's a real thing, and we're going to break down the mechanics behind it. So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll cover the basic idea of balance. Then, we'll get into why your wallet isn't the same as the whole economy. After that, we'll see what happens when the scales tip, look at the two main things that cause it, and finally, we'll ask the big question. Is that balance even a sure thing? Okay, let's start at the beginning. Part 1, the idea of balance. You can think of this as the economy trying to find its perfect sweet spot. And that sweet spot has a name, monetary equilibrium. It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually super simple. It's a state where the amount of money everyone collectively wants to hold on to, in their wallets, in their bank accounts, that's the demand, is perfectly equal to the total amount of money that actually exists in the whole system. That's the supply. When demand equals supply, everything's in balance. Now, here's where we need to make a really important distinction. Because what you or I do with our own money, that's a totally different ballgame from what happens in the economy as a whole. Your wallet is not the whole story. Think about it this way. If you feel like you have a bit too much cash lying around, what do? You'll probably spend it or maybe buy a stock. If you need cash, you do the opposite. You sell something or cut back on spending. Your goal is just to manage your own personal balance. But for the economy, it's a closed loop. The money you just spent didn't disappear. It just went into someone else's hands. Your too much cash became their just enough cash. So all these individual moves, they just cancel each other out. The total amount of money in the system, it doesn't change one bit. Okay, so what happens when it's not just you trying to adjust your bank account, but when the entire economy is out of balance? This is when things really start to happen. Let's look at what goes down when those scales tip. So the system can get thrown off in one of two ways. First, you have a situation where there's just too much money sloshing around. The supply of cash is way bigger than the amount people actually want to hold. The second scenario is the exact opposite. Everybody suddenly wants to hang on to more cash, but there just isn't enough to go around. And each of these imbalances leads to a very different result. In the too much money scenario, the value of each dollar drops. It's simple supply and demand, right? When there's a glut of something, its price falls. And if money is worth less, you need more of it to buy things, so prices go up. We have a name for that: inflation. Now, on the flip side, when everyone is scrambling to get more cash than exists, that cash becomes more valuable. Its value rises, and that means you need less of it to buy stuff, so prices fall, and we call that deflation. This all leads to the next big question, doesn't it? What's knocking the system off balance in the first place? Well, it usually comes down to two main triggers. Trigger number 1 is a change in the money supply itself. You can picture this like a new gold rush, or the more modern version, a central bank deciding to print more money. Suddenly, the total amount of cash in the economy goes up, but people's desire to hold on to cash hasn't changed. So what you get is more dollars chasing the exact same amount of stuff. Naturally, the value of each one of those dollars goes down. The result? You guessed it, inflation. And this doesn't just affect the price of milk and eggs. When there's extra cash, people also use it to buy things like stocks and bonds. All that buying pushes the prices of those assets up. Now, this quote is key. When financial asset prices go up, it's the same thing as interest rates going down. It sounds a bit weird, but if you think about it, if you pay a higher price for a bond that gives you a fixed payment each year, your actual percentage return, the interest rate, is lower. It's a crucial link. Okay, so the second trigger comes from the other side, a change in the demand for money. Picture an economic crisis. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty in the air. What do people do? They run for safety. And in an economy, safety means cash. So suddenly, everyone wants to hold more money. The actual supply of money hasn't changed at all, but the desire for it just skyrocketed. Money becomes scarce and therefore more valuable. And when money is more valuable, the price of everything else tends to fall. That's deflation.
And we see the mirror image of the last situation here. To get that cash everyone suddenly wants, people sell off their other assets, like stocks and bonds. This wave of selling pushes asset prices down, and just like we saw before, but in reverse, when the price of an asset like a bond goes down, its effective interest rate goes up. A collective dash for cash can literally cause interest rates across the economy to rise.
So all of this brings us to our final and maybe most important section. With all of these powerful forces at play, can we just assume that the economy will always find its way back to that perfect balance? In other words, is equilibrium a guarantee? Well, here's the big takeaway. The answer is no. This monetary balance is absolutely not automatic. There's no magical, invisible hand that's going to step in and make sure supply always matches demand. The truth is, the system is pretty fragile, and it can get knocked off balance by anything from a major global event to just a collective change in mood. And that's the final thought I want to leave you with. If this whole economic system is so easily tipped into periods of inflation or deflation, what does that actually mean for us? For our jobs, our savings, our ability to plan for the future? This isn't just theory. The consequences of this imbalance are very, very real.